Well, issues of service delivery in Gauteng are expected to take centre stage today. That's when Premier Panyaza Lesufi will deliver the State of the Province address. Ongoing power cuts and persistent water shortages continue to plague residents. Provincial healthcare facilities are also under intense strain, with patients bearing the brunt of compounding issues in the sector. Now, let's get analysis on this. We're now joined via Zoom by Dr Tshepang Molale, a local government expert for the University of Mpumalanga. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, sir. So, of course, a lot to expect, for the maiden speech by Panyaza Lesufi. But let's get your thoughts. I'd like us to start with municipalities. Political turmoil, of course, has been dogging the province's municipalities over the last few months, with political parties fighting for power in the metros and, of course, service delivery being at the back foot.
Yes, thank you so much, Unati, for the invite, and good afternoon to your viewers. Yes, of course, insofar as service delivery is concerned and the political turmoil that is taking place in the various municipalities across Gauteng, it is going to be quite interesting to watch what interventions this premier is going to say would be his provincial government's task to address. For me, what should be very key would be taking cue from what his predecessor had promised in his last SOPA last year, things such as leading IGR, intergovernment relations activities across the different municipalities to try and address, the service delivery problems that are plaguing these municipalities. What was key in the previous premier's address was to focus on how to come up with strategies by also undermining strategies that are undermining political difference. So because different municipalities are headed by different political parties, it should not necessarily be the case that those political differences are going to hamper government's actions towards addressing common service delivery issues. So one is expecting that this premier, because he was indeed part of that executive committee in the province, also being an MEC in the province that was led by the premier's former Premier David Makura, what is it that he would do, taking cue from what was promised last year into the next year? There were, for instance, activities such as leading government programs, intergovernmental relations programs on Thursdays and Fridays to the different municipalities to lead service delivery problems and resolve them at a municipal level. So let us see how far the Gauteng province has done in that respect, and what are the promises or the activities that this premier will come up with in addressing that. Perhaps there's continuity or new programs, plans of actions to turn things around in local government in Gauteng.
And of course, top of mind for most people in this province, as any other South African, is the ongoing power blackouts that we are experiencing, and of course the water shortages that we're experiencing in this province. What are some of the plans that Lesufi can come up with here, particularly as you look at the state of national disaster that has been given to many provinces, including this one?
Look, with electricity, I think since the president gave plans, and as you rightfully say, having announced the state of disaster, what one would expect for this premier is to take cue from what the president will be doing and plans at national level, and how do these plans now translate to your different municipalities across the province. It is quite interesting that you're also mentioning the issue of water outages. There was talk a few years ago, and even in last year's SOPA in Gauteng, of fast-tracking the so-called district development model. And my understanding of this model was to capacitate the district municipalities, the two districts, as well as the metros in Gauteng, towards making sure that issues such as addressing water challenges and infrastructure insofar as water supply is concerned, they are fast-tracked. So one should needs to expect, this premier trying to outline, because, State of the Provinces address as well as the SONAs, they are notorious for lacking detail. So the political principle would be, just outlining generally what would be the plan of action without actually giving step-by-step, details insofar as how will this activity be addressed and who would be the key role players in addressing this activity. So I would expect that this premier should not follow that convention, but rather come, to bring answers to the residents of Gauteng, who can say, this is what the government will do, and how far is the implementation of this district development model, and what does it mean for, the ordinary citizen in Gauteng who's having these water cuts problems, who's having these electricity shortage issues, and how will then now they translate towards making local businesses, to get some form of relief, and, so that they can be able to survive or to operate given the current challenging economic circumstances.
Now, of course, there are other, outstanding issues like the e-tolls that he also needs to probably outline, during this address. When you look at some of the things that obviously were also left, by his predecessor, is Lesufi the guy that will ultimately close this matter, finally? And also, will he save Gauteng?
Well, you see, for Lesufi, I might say that the jury is out, and particularly because we've seen the ANC not doing so well in Gauteng in terms of retaining the vote of confidence from the general voters, as we've seen, different metros now being led by the erstwhile opposition political parties, while the ANC was in power in the different municipalities. So he has got to make sure, he has no choice but to make sure that he becomes a man of his word, because when shortly after he was elected, he ascended to the seat as the premier, he then came with a promise to say he would make sure that e-tolls in this province, they become a thing of a past, and he should be a man of his word. And now, as we're going to national elections, I think he has to make sure that he does something that is going to give that vote of confidence back, from the residents of Gauteng to the ANC, so that he sort of redeem this the bruised image that the political party that he is leading in that province is has had for a few years now. So I think there's no time to experiment with other programs or this activity or that. Now is the time for action to make sure that you give your residents that assurance that you are indeed the man who can turn things around and actually save the image of your party or yourself. So he has no choice in that score.
Some provinces, like, for instance, the Western Cape, have been, criticized for prioritizing certain aspects of the province and neglecting certain areas. What Panyaza Lesufi did undertake, when he was appointed, was to upgrade township informal settlements and hostels, in the entire province. How well do you think this plan will go, in as far as his tenure is concerned?
Yeah. Well, the issue of informal settlements, I wonder, aren't their plans to, call a state of disaster towards addressing informal settlements? Because this is quite a serious issue for a great many citizens across the country. Might I add, if you are a resident living in an informal settlement, you do not have access to your basic services, water, refuse collection, electricity, you name them. And time and again, when you interact with government officials, they will say, we first need to make this place a township establishment, get it under the control in terms of the municipal demarcation board, of this municipality before we can begin to formally give services there. But yet, when they go for voting, they actually go to those informal settlements and they actually ask for votes from those people. So it is always the case that once they get into government, there's a lot of red tape that, is preventing, the ordinary men on the street living in informal settlements to get access to basic services. And this has got to be, addressed, as a matter of urgency. he did say that he will come up, with ways to address it, but we want to see what are these things that will be done. How will this government red tape, be done away with, so that the people actually get these services. They become township establishment. They become attached to the different municipalities, and the backlog that is existing insofar as housing, for instance, is concerned, is addressed. Because at the end of the day, these challenges are plaguing our citizens, and it is dehumanizing, to say the very least, to see someone not having access to toilet facilities, someone not having access to water. So the time for promising is over, unfortunately, and now should be the time for action.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Molale, on the show. Really do appreciate it.